The biodome of New Eden Colony stretched like a crystalline bubble against the alien landscape, its transparent walls revealing a carefully cultivated environment that was equal parts scientific marvel and human determination. Inside this fragile sanctuary, 8-year-old Tommy Williams moved with the carefree energy of a child who believed the universe was nothing more than a playground of endless possibilities. Emily Williams watched her son from the doorway of their living quarters, her scientific mind always observing, always analyzing. As a lead cynobiologist for the Colonial Research Station, she understood better than most how precarious life could be on this distant world. The colony was humanity's latest attempt to push beyond its original boundaries, a testament to their species' relentless drive to explore and survive. Tommy's current fascination was a collection of small robotic components scattered across the floor. His small fingers moved with surprising dexterity, assembling and reassembling miniature machines with an intuition that went beyond typical childhood curiosity. Emily recognized that look, the same intense concentration she saw in her own work, the same burning desire to understand how things connected. "Mom, look," Tommy called out, holding up a half-assembled device. "I think I've figured out how to make it work differently." Emily smiled, her heart swelling with pride. Tommy was different, in ways that went beyond typical childhood prodigy status. Medical scans had always shown unusual genetic markers, nothing definitively abnormal, but distinctive enough to catch the attention of various research departments. What neither Tommy nor Emily knew was that light years away, a contract had been sealed. The Zorn Collective, a mercenary organization with tendrils reaching across multiple star systems, had received a highly classified directive. Their target, Tommy Williams and his mother. In the shadowy communication chambers of the Zorn headquarters, encrypted messages flickered across holographic displays. Genetic analysis reports suggested the Williams family carried something extraordinary, something that needed to be eliminated. The details were intentionally vague, a common practice for high-priority contracts that required absolute discretion. Commander Vexnar, a veteran of countless galactic conflicts, reviewed the mission parameters. His reptilian features remained impassive, but something in the contract made even his experienced team nervous. The bounty was astronomical, far beyond standard elimination missions. More importantly, the directive came from sources so high up the galactic political ladder that questioning it was tantamount to suicide. "Prepare the stealth infiltration units," Vexnar instructed his second-in-command. "We move at the next planetary rotation." Back in the New Eden Colony, Tommy remained blissfully unaware. The robotic components he played with were more than mere toys. They were complex systems that most adult engineers would struggle to comprehend. Each connection he made seemed to flow with an intuitive understanding that defied his young age. Emily's communication device chirped. Another research update from the Colonial Administration. She barely noticed Tommy's hands moving with an almost supernatural precision, reconfiguring the small machines into configurations that should have been mathematically impossible. Outside the biodome, the first shadows of the approaching Zorn ships began to mask the distant starlight. Sophisticated camouflage systems rendered them invisible to standard colonial detection systems. They would strike quickly, efficiently, leaving no trace beyond the completed mission. Tommy looked up suddenly, a strange sensation crossing his young face. For a moment, his eyes flickered with something ancient, a depth of perception that seemed to look beyond the physical world. Emily missed the moment, her attention drawn to incoming data streams. The colony continued its routine existence, unaware of the approaching storm. Routine maintenance drones moved along predetermined paths. Communication networks hummed with their standard background chatter. Nothing suggested the imminent violence that would tear through this peaceful settlement. One final robotic component clicked into place beneath Tommy's fingers. The small device hummed to life, its internal systems performing calculations that would have taken supercomputers hours to complete. Tommy smiled, entirely unaware that he had just created something extraordinary, something that would become crucial in the events about to unfold. The darkness outside grew closer. The Zorn ships prepared their approach. And in that moment, the first chapter of an extraordinary revenge was about to be written. A story that would reshape the understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. The crypt beneath the Carpathian Mountains had remained untouched for centuries, a testament to architectural and supernatural preservation. Layers of ancient magic and forgotten technologies coexisted in a delicate balance, waiting for a moment that would shatter millennia of silence. When the psychic connection broke, when the last thread linking Dracula to his grandson was violently severed, the very stone of the crypt trembled. Dust that had settled during centuries of stillness began to dance, responding to an energy that predated human understanding. The first sign of awakening was not sound, nor movement, but a sudden drop in temperature that defied all natural laws. His eyes opened, not the eyes of a man, but the accumulated wisdom of centuries distilled into two crimson orbs that burned with an intensity that could melt quantum-hardened alloys. Each iris contained entire galaxies of rage, calculated vengeance that had been brewing since the days when humanity first looked to the stars and dreamed of conquest. Ancient mechanisms stirred to life around him. Clockwork computers, devices that merged Victorian engineering with supernatural calculations, began to hum. Intricate brass gears turned, powered by a combination of blood magic and technologies that would make modern quantum physicists weep with confusion. Holographic displays materialized, not through electronic means, but through pure supernatural projection. Dracula was not simply awakening. He was preparing for war. His fingers traced the edge of a display, and star charts materialized. Centuries of collected intelligence, gathered through a network of immortal agents spread across human and alien civilizations, began to compile. The Zorn Collective's entire operational history unfolded before him. Every contract, every mission, every strategic movement mapped with surgical precision. The blood bond was more than a mere familial connection. It was a supernatural tracking system that transcended physical limitations. Tommy's final moments played out in Dracula's mind with crystal clarity. The sudden violence, the calculated elimination, the complete disregard for a child's life. Each detail fueled a rage that had been dormant for centuries. Surrounding the central chamber, preservation tanks containing artifacts from different historical periods began to activate. Some contained biological samples, others technological marvels that defied contemporary understanding. Dracula had always been a collector, a preserver of potential, understanding that true power lay not in immediate destruction, but in careful preparation. A holographic representation of Tommy materialized, not from any recorded image, but reconstructed through the supernatural connection of blood and lineage. The boy's potential, his unique genetic markers, became clear. This was no ordinary child. This was a lineage that carried something extraordinary, something the Zorn Collective had feared enough to eliminate. Mechanical servants, constructs that blended necromancy with advanced robotics, began to prepare. They were not machines in the traditional sense, but extensions of Dracula's will. Each moved with a purpose that suggested intelligence far beyond simple programming. Outside the crypt, the Romanian countryside remained unchanged. Ancient forests surrounded the mountain, their shadows holding secrets older than human civilization. No satellite, no scanning technology could penetrate the supernatural barriers that protected this location. Dracula's first communication was not through any standard communication system. Instead, a network of supernatural agents, vampires, yes, but also other supernatural beings who owed allegiance to the old blood, began to receive mental transmissions, coordinates, mission parameters, and a level of vengeance that would reshape galactic understanding. This was more than a personal vendetta. This was a statement. Humanity had been underestimated for too long. The Zorn Collective would learn that there were protectors of the human species who operated on levels far beyond conventional understanding. Protectors who measured time not in years, but in centuries. Who understood that true power was not about immediate destruction, but calculated, surgical revenge. The clockwork computers continued their intricate calculations. Star charts shifted and realigned. An invasion plan began to take shape, not a crude military assault, but a strategic dismantling that would send shockwaves through every mercenary organization in the galaxy. Dracula stood. The first movement in centuries, yet carrying the grace of a predator who had never truly been at rest. His coat, a garment that seemed to be made of living shadows, settled around him. Technologies from different eras integrated seamlessly, a testament to centuries of collected knowledge. The awakening was complete. The hunt would soon begin. The first phase of preparation was information gathering. Dracula's network of immortal agents spanned continents, planets, and entire star systems. They were not merely informants, but carefully cultivated assets, each strategically placed over decades or even centuries. In a hidden communication hub beneath the streets of New Shanghai, an elderly woman who had not aged a day in over 200 years received the first transmission. Her fingers, delicate yet strong, began decoding encrypted messages that would make modern quantum cryptographers weep with frustration. She was Jin Wei, one of Dracula's oldest allies, a master of intelligence gathering who had infiltrated every major governmental and corporate structure across human-controlled space. Simultaneously, in the orbital research stations circling distant colonies, other agents began to move. A molecular biologist working on advanced genetic research subtly redirected scanning protocols. A deep space communications officer began to create invisible pathways of information, routing data through quantum-entangled networks that existed beyond standard detection. Dracula's preparation was not simply about revenge. It was about sending a message that would reshape the understanding of human potential and protection. His collection of artifacts began to activate. Some were technological marvels recovered from fallen civilizations. Others were supernatural constructs that defied scientific explanation. A device that looked like a Victorian-era music box began to emit a low hum, its internal mechanisms realigning star charts with supernatural precision. In the crypt, holographic displays showed the intricate connections of the Zorn Collective. Each mercenary group, each contract, each strategic movement was mapped with surgical accuracy. Dracula was not just planning an attack. He was preparing to dismantle an entire galactic infrastructure. The supernatural technologies at his disposal were beyond comprehension. A small crystal sphere began to pulse with an internal light, collecting and processing information from across multiple star systems. It was a data collection method that combined blood magic with quantum computing, creating an intelligence network that could predict and manipulate events with terrifying accuracy. Jin Wei's report came through. A detailed breakdown of the Zorn Collective's recent contracts, their key leadership, and their most vulnerable points. But it was more than just intelligence. Each piece of information was a potential weapon, a strategic point of attack that could be leveraged to maximum effect. Dracula's fingers traced the holographic displays, each touch sending ripples of supernatural energy that recalibrated entire strategic models. He was not just planning a revenge. He was conducting a surgical dismantling of an entire galactic organization. Preservation tanks around the central chamber began to activate. Some contained biological samples collected over centuries, genetic markers, unique technologies, remnants of civilizations long forgotten. Others held technological artifacts that blended supernatural energy with advanced engineering. A mechanical construct, neither fully machine nor completely supernatural, began assembling weapons. These were not conventional arms, but hybrid devices that merged energy projection with blood magic. Each component was crafted with a precision that suggested they were as much a work of art as instruments of destruction. The Romanian countryside above remained unchanged. To any external observer, nothing suggested the apocalyptic preparation occurring beneath the mountain. Satellite scans would show nothing, magical wards preventing any form of detection. Dracula understood that true power was not about immediate destruction, but about strategic dismantling. The Zorn Collective would be made an example of, a warning to any organization that would dare threaten humanity's potential. His network of agents continued to move. A communication officer in a deep space research station redirected communication arrays. A genetic researcher subtly modified scanning protocols. A mercenary working deep undercover began to create invisible pathways of misinformation. Each movement was calculated, each action a piece of a larger, more complex strategy that had been brewing for centuries. The music box-like device continued its low hum. Star charts realigned. Supernatural energy began to coalesce into something more than a simple revenge plot. This was a statement, a declaration that humanity had protectors who operated on levels far beyond conventional understanding. As the preparations continued, Dracula remained utterly still. Yet there was a sense of movement, of potential energy waiting to be released. Like a predator perfectly still before the moment of attack, he was gathering his strength. The hunt was about to begin. The first strike came without warning. Outpost Sigma 9 hung in the cold emptiness of deep space, a critical relay station for the Zorn Collective's communication network. From the outside, nothing suggested the impending doom. Routine maintenance drones moved along predictable patterns. Internal security systems hummed with their standard efficiency. Inside the station, Commander Vexnar's second-in-command reviewed standard operational logs. Nothing seemed out of place. The station's quantum-encrypted communication arrays continued to pulse with their regular rhythm, processing millions of data packets per second. Then, silence. It wasn't a sudden blackout. More like a gradual dimming, as if something was slowly consuming the station's energy. Security cameras began to flicker, not with the sharp static of a technical malfunction, but with a strange, almost organic distortion. The first response team noticed something was wrong when they found the outer monitoring stations completely empty. No signs of struggle, no forced entry, just absolute, complete absence. As they moved deeper into the station, the temperature began to drop. Not the standard cooling of life support systems, but a supernatural chill that seemed to penetrate beyond physical sensation. Breath frosted in the air. Equipment began to malfunction in ways that defied technical explanation. The first body was discovered in the central communication hub, completely drained of blood, yet without a single wound. The corpse looked desiccated, as if decades of life had been instantaneously extracted. Surrounding technical equipment remained perfectly intact, creating an even more disturbing scene. Surveillance logs would later show nothing. No intrusion, no breach, just a gradual, inexplicable disappearance of an entire station's personnel. News of the incident spread quickly through Zorn Collective communication channels. Panic began to ripple through their extensive network. This was not a standard attack. This was something else entirely. On another frontier of space, Outpost Gamma 12 suffered a similar fate. An entire research facility simply vanished. No distress signals, no evidence of conflict, just complete, absolute disappearance. Commander Vexnar received the reports with growing dread. These were not random attacks. They were methodical, surgical, each outpost targeted with a precision that suggested intimate knowledge of their operational systems. Intercepted communication fragments hinted at something impossible. Survivors from other stations spoke of shadows that moved faster than light, of a presence that seemed to consume not just life, but the very essence of technological systems. The Zorn Collective's intelligence networks began to work overtime. What could penetrate their most secure facilities? What predator could move through quantum-encrypted security systems as if they were transparent glass? Each attacked location shared one disturbing characteristic. Not a single drop of blood remained. Equipment was untouched, but the living presence completely gone. Xenobiological research teams brought in to investigate found nothing. No DNA traces, no technological residue, just an overwhelming sense of something ancient. Something that predated their understanding of warfare or survival. Commander Vexnar knew they were being hunted, but by what? The attacks continued. Strategically selected outposts across multiple star systems. Always the same pattern. Complete extraction of biological material. No technological disruption. No standard signs of conflict. Conspiracy theories began to spread. Some suggested a new form of biological weapon. Others whispered about supernatural intervention. The Zorn Collective's reputation of invincibility began to crumble. In the deepest communication chambers of their headquarters, emergency protocols were activated, but even these seemed ineffective against an enemy that could penetrate their most secure systems with supernatural ease. Dracula watched the chaos unfold. Each attack was a message, a warning, a demonstration of power that went beyond conventional understanding of warfare. The first phase of revenge had begun, and the galaxy was about to learn that some predators operated on levels far beyond comprehension. The galactic communication networks erupted in a frenzy of speculation and fear. What had once been a distant rumor about the Zorn Collective's vulnerabilities was now a terrifying reality broadcast across hundreds of star systems. On the central communication hub of the Galactic Council, representatives from multiple alien civilizations gathered in an emergency session. Holographic displays flickered with increasingly disturbing reports. The Zorn Collective, an organization considered invincible for centuries, was being systematically dismantled by an unknown force. Ambassador Krelnax of the Foradian Confederation leaned forward, his crystalline features reflecting the growing tension. "These are not random attacks," he stated, his translation device converting his complex language into a dozen different communication protocols. "This is a targeted, surgical elimination that suggests intelligence far beyond our current understanding." The human representative, Sandra Martinez, remained unusually quiet. Her silence spoke volumes. While other civilizations panicked, she seemed to be studying the reports with a different perspective, almost as if she recognized something in the pattern of destruction. Mercenary networks began to collapse. Contracts that had been standard for generations were suddenly canceled. Entire squadrons of space-faring hunters found themselves without work, as no organization wanted to risk confronting whatever was dismantling the Zorn Collective. Financial markets across multiple star systems began to destabilize. The Zorn Collective had been more than just a mercenary organization. They were a critical infrastructure that managed security, information, and economic transactions for countless civilizations. Their systematic destruction created a power vacuum that threatened to consume entire economic systems. Deep space communication relays intercepted fragments of increasingly desperate communications. The Zorn Collective was no longer trying to hunt their mysterious enemy. They were simply trying to survive. On the mining colony of New Proxima, a group of independent contractors gathered in a dimly lit communication center. News of the attacks had spread like wildfire, transforming from rumor to terrifying reality. "They say not a single drop of blood remains," whispered George Rodriguez, a veteran space trader. "No weapons damage, no technological interference, just complete disappearance." The room fell silent. Such reports defied conventional understanding of warfare or predation. Quantum communication networks began to develop their own conspiracy theories. Some suggested a new form of biological weapon. Others spoke of supernatural intervention. The most terrifying theories suggested something far more ancient, a predator that operated beyond the understanding of current galactic civilizations. Scientific research stations redirected their scanning protocols. Every available sensor was now focused on trying to understand the pattern of attacks. Universities across multiple star systems began emergency symposiums, attempting to analyze the limited data available. The Zorn Collective's communication encryption was finally breached, not by technological means, but through a supernatural infiltration that suggested capabilities far beyond standard hacking techniques. Fragments of internal communications reveal a growing sense of existential dread. Their leadership was fracturing. Some suggested complete evacuation of all known operational zones. Others proposed desperate counterattacks. But beneath the panic, there was an underlying recognition that they were facing something fundamentally different. Ambassador Martinez finally spoke during the Galactic Council session. Her words carried a weight that silenced the room. "We are witnessing something unprecedented," she said. "This is not an attack. This is a message. Her statement hung in the air, pregnant with unspoken implications. Across multiple star systems, mercenary organizations began to withdraw. Contracts were canceled. Entire networks of space-based security began to disintegrate. The Zorn Collective's systematic destruction was creating a power vacuum that threatened the entire galactic infrastructure. Deep space listening posts continued to collect fragments of communication. Each report added another layer to the growing mystery. No technological explanation could account for the pattern of attacks. No standard form of warfare matched the surgical precision being demonstrated. The galaxy held its collective breath. Something was hunting the hunters, and no one knew why. In the cold darkness between star systems, something ancient continued to watch. Patient, calculating, preparing for the next phase of its intricate plan of revenge. The workshop beneath the Carpathian Mountains was no ordinary laboratory. Centuries of collected technologies merged with supernatural engineering in a space that defied conventional understanding. Dracula moved between workstations, each touch transforming alien technologies into weapons that blended magic and science. A device that resembled an intricate clockwork music box began to pulse with an internal energy that made local quantum sensors spin wildly. Nearby, preserved biological samples from extinct civilizations floated in crystalline containers, their genetic structures being systematically rewritten and enhanced. Jin Wei, standing at a holographic interface, carefully integrated alien communication protocols with supernatural tracking systems. Her fingers moved with a precision that suggested centuries of practice. Each manipulation created pathways of information that could penetrate the most secure communication networks in the galaxy. The first major technological breakthrough came with a weapon system that defied standard physics. Energy matrices created from blood samples could now penetrate quantum-shielded environments. What the Zorn Collective considered impenetrable defenses were about to become transparent glass. Dracula's approach was not about simple destruction. Each technological enhancement was a carefully calculated instrument of precision. He was dismantling the Zorn Collective's infrastructure with the same methodical approach he had used to survive centuries of human conflict. Biological augmentation chambers hummed with an otherworldly energy. Genetic markers collected over centuries began to merge with advanced alien technologies. The result was not a weapon, but a complete reimagining of what biological potential could mean. A small crystal sphere began to collect and process information from across multiple star systems. Its internal mechanisms combined quantum computing with supernatural energy manipulation, creating an intelligence network that could predict and manipulate events with terrifying accuracy. The mechanical servants that moved around the laboratory were neither fully machine nor completely supernatural. Each was a hybrid construct that blended necromancy with advanced robotics. They processed information, prepared components, and anticipated needs before they could be verbalized. Dracula understood that true technological superiority was not about raw power, but about adaptability. Each system he created could modify itself, learn, and evolve faster than any standard artificial intelligence. The line between technology and supernatural ability became increasingly blurred. Energy shields developed in the laboratory could now absorb and redirect multiple forms of attack. A standard plasma weapon would be consumed, its energy transformed and redirected with supernatural precision. Quantum encryption became meaningless against systems that could literally rewrite communication protocols in real time. Jin Wei completed the integration of a communication matrix that could penetrate any known galactic communication network. "The last barrier is down," she reported, her voice carrying the calm of someone who had seen centuries of technological evolution. Dracula's fingers traced the holographic display, star charts realigning with supernatural precision. Each point of potential conflict was now a potential pathway of destruction. The Zorn Collective's entire infrastructure was about to become a playground for supernatural technological manipulation. Preservation tanks around the central chamber continued to activate. Some contained biological samples collected over centuries, genetic markers, unique technologies, remnants of civilizations long forgotten. Others held technological artifacts that blended supernatural energy with advanced engineering. The Romanian countryside above remained unchanged. To any external observer, nothing suggested the apocalyptic technological preparation occurring beneath the mountain. Satellite scans would show nothing, magical wards preventing any form of detection. A weapon system took shape, not a conventional arm, but a hybrid device that merged energy projection with blood magic. Each component was crafted with a precision that suggested they were as much a work of art as instruments of destruction. The technological convergence was complete. Dracula had transformed alien technologies, supernatural abilities, and centuries of collected knowledge into a weapon system that defied conventional understanding. The Zorn Collective was about to learn that there were forms of technological superiority that went far beyond their comprehension. As the final components aligned, a low hum began to build. Not an electronic sound, but something that seemed to vibrate between dimensions. The hunt was about to enter its most devastating phase. Galactic civilizations would soon understand that some predators operated on levels far beyond technological comprehension. The Zorn Collective's central command station was more than just a strategic hub. It was a technological marvel that had stood as a symbol of galactic dominance for centuries. Constructed from meta-alloys that could withstand direct nuclear impacts, the station was a fortress floating in the cold emptiness of deep space. Commander Vexnar stood at the primary control center, his reptilian features etched with a desperation that had grown over weeks of systematic destruction. Holographic displays showed the rapidly diminishing network of outposts, each represented by a dying point of light. Their once invincible organization was being dismantled with a precision that defied comprehension. "Activate final defense protocols," Vexnar commanded, his voice a mixture of rage and fear. The station's defensive systems came to life. Quantum shield generators hummed with energy that could deflect entire asteroid fields. Weapon systems capable of destroying entire planetary populations prepared to engage. This was the last stronghold of the Zorn Collective, and they would not go quietly. The first sign of intrusion came not as a physical breach, but as a systematic collapse of their communication networks. Encrypted channels began to dissolve, not through hacking, but through a supernatural manipulation that rewrote the very fabric of their communication infrastructure. Shadows began to coalesce within the station's most secure chambers. Not the darkness of physical absence, but a living, breathing manifestation of something far beyond technological understanding. Dracula moved through the station's defenses as if they were nothing more than mist. Each step was a calculated invasion that simultaneously destroyed and collected information. Quantum shields dissolved. Energy weapons turned to dust. The most advanced technological defenses in the galaxy became nothing more than decorative barriers. The station's artificial intelligence began to communicate, not through standard protocols, but through a language that merged technological communication with something far more ancient. Fragments of consciousness began to leak, revealing the true nature of the invasion. Vexnar watched in horror as entire sections of the station simply ceased to exist. No explosions, no standard signs of conflict, just complete, absolute removal. Supernatural energy began to pulse through the station's technological infrastructure. Mechanical systems became conduits for a form of power that went beyond physical understanding. Walls became transparent. Defenses became pathways of invasion. "This is impossible," Vexnar muttered, his communication devices failing one by one. Dracula's approach was surgical. Each movement was a demonstration of centuries of collected knowledge. Technological systems became extensions of his supernatural will. Quantum encryption became meaningless. Defensive protocols dissolved. The station's crew found themselves facing something beyond conventional warfare. Biological systems began to interact with supernatural energy. Technological defenses became pathways of invasion. The very fabric of their reality began to unravel. Jinwei's voice came through on a secure channel. "Primary objective approaching completion," she reported, her tone clinical and detached. Entire sections of the station began to disappear, not destroyed, not damaged, simply removed from existence. Vexnar watched as centuries of technological superiority became nothing more than a distant memory. The final confrontation was not a battle in the traditional sense. It was a systematic deconstruction of everything the Zorn Collective believed about power, technology, and survival. Dracula moved through the station's central chamber, each step a calculated demonstration of supernatural technological superiority. Weapon systems turned to dust. Defensive protocols became pathways of invasion. The most advanced technological fortress in the galaxy was about to become nothing more than a memory. "For my grandson," Dracula whispered, his voice a supernatural frequency that dissolved technological barriers. The station's final moments were not marked by explosion or conflict. Instead, there was simply a gradual dissolution. Technological systems became conduits of supernatural energy. Defensive protocols transformed into pathways of invasion. Vexnar made one final attempt to activate the station's ultimate weapon. His fingers moved across communication interfaces that were rapidly becoming transparent. Nothing happened. In the cold emptiness of space, the Zorn Collective's central command station simply ceased to exist. No debris, no explosion, just complete, absolute removal. The message was clear. Some predators operated on levels far beyond technological comprehension. Humanity had protectors that defied understanding. The aftermath of Dracula's revenge rippled across multiple star systems like a supernatural shockwave. Galactic communication networks fell silent, trying to process the complete elimination of the Zorn Collective, an organization that had been a cornerstone of interstellar security for centuries. In the emergency chambers of the Galactic Council, representatives from hundreds of civilizations sat in stunned silence. The holographic displays showed nothing where the Zorn Collective's central command had once existed. No debris, no energy signatures, just absolute, complete removal. Sandra Martinez, the human representative, allowed herself the slightest hint of a smile. She understood something the other representatives did not, that humanity had just been given the most powerful message of protection in galactic history. Jinwei began the systematic documentation of the event, not as a traditional report, but as a warning. Each communication she sent was carefully crafted, a message that spoke between the lines. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The supernatural protectors of human potential had awoken. On New Eden Colony, Emily Williams received a communication that defied conventional understanding. A quantum-encrypted message that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. The only identifier was a single word: vengeance. She understood immediately. The attack on her son Tommy had been answered. Dracula's network of supernatural agents began to disperse, not in retreat, but in strategic positioning. They would become the unseen guardians, the supernatural early warning system for human colonies across the galaxy. The economic impact was catastrophic. Entire markets that had depended on the Zorn Collective's infrastructure began to collapse. Mercenary networks dissolved overnight. Security contracts became worthless pieces of digital paper. Scientific research stations across multiple star systems began to analyze the limited data available. How could an entire organization simply cease to exist? The most advanced scanning technologies found nothing. No residual energy signatures, no technological remnants, just complete absence. On the mining colony of New Proxima, veteran space traders gathered in communication centers. The stories began to spread. Whispers of a supernatural force that had dismantled the most powerful mercenary organization in galactic history. They say not a single drop of blood remained. George Rodriguez told a group of wide-eyed listeners. No weapons damage, no technological interference, just complete removal. The message was clear. Some protectors operated on levels far beyond conventional understanding. Dracula returned to his mountain sanctuary, but not to rest. The preservation tanks continued their work. Genetic samples, technological artifacts, each a potential weapon, each a potential guardian for future generations of humans who might find themselves threatened. Jin Wei completed her final communication report. Each line was a carefully constructed warning. The galaxy would understand that humanity had protectors who measured time in centuries, who could dismantle entire civilizations with a thought. The supernatural technological convergence that had destroyed the Zorn Collective was just the beginning. Emily Williams looked at the quantum-encrypted message again. She understood now. The supernatural protection of her bloodline ran deeper than she had ever imagined. Tommy's unique genetic markers, the very thing that had marked him for elimination, were part of something far more complex. Across distant star systems, other supernatural agents of Dracula's network began to move, not as an invasion, not as a conquest, but as guardians, unseen protectors who would ensure that no civilization would again underestimate human potential. The Galactic Council's emergency session dissolved into speculation and fear. Some advocated for immediate defensive preparations. Others suggested diplomatic communications. But beneath the panic, there was a growing recognition. Humanity was not alone, and its protectors were far more terrifying than any known civilization could comprehend. Dracula watched the unfolding events through his supernatural communication networks. Each movement was calculated, each communication a carefully placed piece in a much larger strategy. The galaxy had been given a warning. Humanity would be protected, at any cost. In the cold darkness between star systems, something ancient and hungry continued to watch. Patient, calculating, waiting for the next threat to emerge. The hunt was far from over.